What's up, everybody? Speech here with another one. Um, and this is another Hero Hey. It's going to be a shorter one. It's concerning Silksong, which I think is a phenomenal game. You should play it if you haven't played it already. Um, you know, I'm just going to say that. But apparently, there's a lot of people who aren't happy about it, and I wonder why that is. I mean, I do. I'm upset at Team Cherry because they waited to the witching hour to oh, it's going to release in a week. Like that's all your prep time, and then there was no pre-order, which that was a major mistake all in itself. So there's that, but it was still a successful launch. It's a phenomenal game, but let's see what he's got to say about it. Let's see what's going on. The modern audience, quote unquote, is very upset at Silksong. I like how nobody calls it Hollow Knight Silksong. And I just call it, myself included, and just call it Silksong. Yeah. What's up, Hero Hey?
So Silksong's got an all-time peak player count on Steam of 587,150, which is really cool. Congrats. However, some of the so-called modern audience are actually very upset at Silksong. At the lower part of this tweet, we can see this account Stealth saying, many indie developers are delaying their games to get out of Hollow Knight Silksong's way. They had marketing plans which now have to be changed because of something they couldn't anticipate.
So what? You should have just launched your game to see how it's going to compare. I mean, yeah, it's one of the most anticipated games ever, but you still should have launched it, because here's the thing. If your games were actually good and had some following, maybe instead of having 500,000 plus people on Steam, now that's not including console because I play on PlayStation. So that was just Steam players. Maybe your game, you would have seen oh shit, it actually compared to Silksong pretty well. Yeah, maybe we would have got 150,000 or 200,000, but we got 100,000 instead of, delaying the game and maybe pissing off what little audience you have. I just think it was a bad move in general for those companies to do that. But yeah.
This Joseph person says, I think Silksong's 2-week PR push has done some damage to other indie studios. I don't think Team Cherry thought about the impact this game would have on other indies in their marketing. I think that's a bummer that I hope isn't replicated, to be honest.
I hope it is replicated. I really do. Because Team Cherry is one of the few indie companies that have stayed indie. A lot of indie companies get bought out by the big ones and consumed, and then they never make anything again, or their games just turn to shit. That's how it is. And honestly, this was great because now it's also got other companies, in theory, like PlayStation and Nintendo, going, okay, well, we got this game. What are they going to do? So, but no, just release your game. It will show you how much of a real following you have behind it.
64 tweeted, Baby Steps is the latest game to move its release date because of Silksong from September 8th to September 23rd. And this FaceTime account saying, I can't be the only person who thinks it's kind of messed up for Silksong to reveal its release date so late. Man, you're indie developers. You should understand the struggle that studios go through.
Yeah, it's called growing pains. Again, I think it was crap that they released the reveal trailer a week or two before it launched. It'd have been nice to have something else, but at that same point, it's it was the greatest move ever. Oh yeah, it's coming out tomorrow, so you do you. We're going back, I and bitching about the other indie companies. It's what other indie companies? The two indie companies I know about? Concerned Ape, because of Stardew Valley, and Team Cherry. They're the only two companies that I know are indie. Everything else to me is under something else. I couldn't tell you if they're indie or not.
And then we...
Oh, and Toby. I think he's still indie. Deltarune and Undertale.
This account Strife saying, by the way, Team Cherry absolutely had the responsibility of giving a heads up about the release of Silksong and accommodating other indie devs in regards to it. Art is
No, they didn't.
made in a vacuum, and as indie devs, they absolutely should know how hard it is for other indie devs to be visible.
Yeah. And they're working in a capitalist society. So Team Cherry absolutely had the responsibility, no, they didn't, of giving a heads up about the release of Silksong and accommodating other indie devs in regards to it. No, they crushed the competition. They did what they're supposed to do as an indie company to prove what they're about. Art isn't made in a vacuum. Well, that's debatable, because if it's not made in a vacuum, then that means no art is genuine, in my opinion, because everything's been made once. It's like you have, I equate this to music. You know, you have what? C to C is 8 notes, but C's a note already. So you have C to B. So that's 7 notes plus 5. So 7 and 5 is 12. Math is hard. You have 12 notes. Like, there's only so much music you can make before you're eventually going to make something. It's that whole adage. You throw 1,000 monkeys with 1,000 typewriters, eventually someone's going to rewrite Shakespeare. Like, that's how it is. Get over yourself. Oh, it's also on Blue Sky. I didn't realize that. So that explains part of it.
Some gaming journalist article titled, "Is Hollow Knight Silksong's cheap price a problem for other indie games? Devs and publishers weigh up its impact." It's a very
Back up. I totally think this is a problem, and it's a good problem to have, because they could have easily charged more for this game than they did Hollow Knight, which my brother keeps saying Hollow Knight was $20 when he bought it. I don't remember how much I bought it for, but he bought it 3 times. We're not going to go there. I think he said $20. Maybe it was 15. But this game was only $20 on PlayStation. That's great. That means it drives the price of games down. Like, the quality of this game and what it's putting out there and the enjoyment, it's going to force the dumbasses at like Nintendo, in theory, to be like, oh crap, that game's better than a lot of the games we release, and they only did it for $20. So if they can get games cheaper, why are they going to pay our games? Like, the cheap price is a problem. Now, as far as the other indie games, like, yeah, it's problematic, because it's like, oh, why are you charging so much when your game is so much more crap, or there's not much love, or all this? And it's like, well, they're an indie developer. They got to make money somehow. Like, this isn't Team Cherry's first rodeo. Like, they made a lot of money off the first one to make a second one. Like, Stardew Valley, the sequel, Stardew Valley 2, because there was a brief like interview podcast thing where that was talked about. So I'm just using it as an example. Could easily charge $40 just because Stardew Valley was like 20 or 30 when it came out. I think that's what I paid for it. And it's the sequel, and it did so well, and it's like got a cult following audience. There's like, they chose not to really do that, and that's a good thing.
a problem for other indie games. Devs and publishers weigh up its impact. It's a very odd thing. I mean, indie devs should be celebrating the success of Silksong, not complaining about it. And to be fair, there have been lots of devs congratulating Silksong. However, clearly, some aren't. And instead, they're insulting Silksong and the devs who worked on it. And it comes off like immense jealousy. And like they're just trying to muddy the waters of the indie scene, really. Because over recent years, we've seen indie games becoming beacons of light for gamers in an industry that's otherwise infested with corrupt AAA greed. Artur, the dev behind the indie series Soul Ash, would give his thoughts. We can see him saying here, some devs have become dependent on press, experts, publishers, conferences, awards, and a network of corporate friendships, and it shows. In other words, some of them are apparently selling out to the very AAA corpos that have pushed gamers away and more into the indie scene to begin with.
That's what I was talking
He would
about
go
earlier.
on to say, many independents are still trying to preserve the meaning of the indie dev term, but it's being divided and conquered by larger interests. Which takes us to Madam Savvy, who responded to Permaband in the tweet that we had on screen a moment ago. And she says the reason why this happens is because a lot of quote unquote indie games and companies are captured. They play by the rules set forth by DI groups so they can be rewarded. Silksong's team didn't do that. They did their own thing.
Yep.
Anyone can release anytime for any price with zero notice.
Exactly.
The individuals outing themselves with that language most likely have some interesting connections to industry capture crews. Now,
I tried to pause it before we moved the screen. So yeah, like anyone can release anytime for any price with zero notice. Like Nintendo did a bunch of that on their last couple of directs where it's like, oh, it's out today. No notice. It's out today. You can buy it today. You can pre-order later today. You can buy it later today. Available after the direct. Like, why don't those count? Like, you know, or games that just you didn't even think were being developed and then boom, oh, you can get it today. Like, why is that not a problem then? You know, I don't know.
else with that language most likely have some interesting connections to industry capture crews. Now, ultimately, I think most indie devs, and when I say most, I mean like 99% or so, by far pretty much all of them, are still very cool, hardworking people. But it is concerning that there's a very small fraction who are apparently willing to sell out to corporate interests and do what they can to subvert the indie genre. But let me know what you think about all this stuff in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and consider liking and or subscribing if you enjoyed my coverage. Helps out greatly. I appreciate it. See you in the comments here and in the next one.
Like I said, give Hero Hey, some love. But yeah, I don't have much to add to that. Like, it's straight up just, it's stupid to complain about this. It's good for the industry. It by having such a cheap price, it puts it down. By just being like, oh yeah, we're going to release this, that throws a whole wrench in everybody else's bullshit. And it's like, oh crap, well, we really can't plan now for things if people are going to start doing this. So now maybe they're going to be like, instead of releasing these half broken games where you need patch after patch after patch after patch after patch on the first week, you're going to get an actually good game at release that isn't broken. Like, is that such a problem to have? I don't think so. But you tell me what you think down in the comments below. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye-bye!